Hope everybody's day is off to a decent start. Jen and Samson here. I'm going to turn on the comments. Oh, there we go. Okay, now they're on. So I wasn't sure exactly what topic I should cover because I do have a few going at the moment. As you guys know, we are going to finish up the Nephilim board game this week, and we are going to finish up the coffee maybe right now. There's nobody here, so I'm going to have to decide on my own again. That's okay. If you're interested in the channel, I'm sure you'll stick around. My disclaimers are over there. I'm not a doctor, not a legal professional either, so this is in no part medical nor legal advice, and those disclaimers are in the comment section. So we were talking about how our daily habits, our daily routines, how part of them, how we don't know where they all originated, right? We don't know the origin stories for all of them. And for example, we didn't always eat breakfast, and we talked about this, about how that was to sell, pretty much. It was basically to just sell more product for meat suppliers and ranchers and cattle ranchers and whatnot. Sammy, lay down, please. I apologize. And so we've talked about that, and other things, started to pique my interest that we do every day. It's kind of like, where does this come from? And no matter what kind of culture you're from, most people my age and in America know the saying, knock on wood, you don't want to jinx yourself or curse yourself, so you'll knock on wood. And that's a Norse pagan custom. It's superstitious, which we're not called to be. But again, I don't want to label pagans as, it's not my job to say what is wicked or what is good or any of those things. We just know that as Christ followers, certain things, even though they're inanimate objects and they have no intention, right? It's how they're used. Certain objects can lead us astray after a time. And so that's why I try to keep the channel balanced too, because I don't want us to be looking at the darkness and then turning into what we're seeing, right? Being a reflection for that, which is why we have to be careful about who we hang around. This is how you see accents formed pretty quickly when somebody moves down south, or from down south to up north, and things like that. People don't realize in today's society, we've kind of become idols unto ourselves because, right, we have all this information at our fingertips. And even if we're not actively using that information, we have that capability, and it gets us to feeling, you can get to feeling quite arrogant in that arena. And like, well, geez, we know it all now. Science proves this, that, and the other. They're never wrong, right? That's not even a question anymore of like, hey, wait a second, let's check this. Let's have some checks and balances and confirm this information and make sure that it's factual. And if we can't confirm it through gathering information, then we need to test it, right? We need to experiment with it and see if this result can be duplicated. But we've gotten to kind of where we become our own idols. And so I want to make a clear distinction, especially on this channel, between paganism, witchcraft, and true Satanism. Because a lot of people today are Satanists and they don't even realize it. They've made an idol of themselves, and that is their religion. They are their own religion. They've made a religion out of the self, their self. So please give the video a thumbs up. I know I don't always speak the way other people speak today either. It's getting harder and harder for me to personally relate, not personally relate to people, but to communicate sometimes effectively, because we all speak so differently, and again, I don't want to say anything's good or bad. It's just different, right? That's, certain things aren't for me to say, but there are certain things, moral laws and values, like where does that come from? This is why the atheistic argument falls apart really quickly. And it's a very Atheism is kind of something where you think you're mature and you think you're grown and you might be in college and you think you've got this education and you think you've got everything figured out. But once you start actually living and your days aren't regimented for you and you have to create a routine yourself or a life yourself, you start to realize that you don't have all the answers and that maybe you do need help walking through this journey, right? Um, so you'll see things through different age groups too. So again, I don't want to make enemies of people that should not be our enemies. We should be embracing them and showing each other charity. Christ never asked what religion somebody was if he healed them. He just asked them if they believed they could be healed. You have to believe. That's a tenet of faith. What am I leading into here? Well, again, with these daily habits, we don't really know where they come from. So let's identify them. And once you know, though, now that you have the information, then you're responsible for it. So do you really want to know? But willful ignorance is also not an excuse. You can't say, well, I don't want to know because I don't want to be held accountable. Right there, you've done yourself in and shown your, true colors in that arena. You've shown your heart, right? And this is what they say when they say the creator, the maker, the one who formed you, judges. And I don't like the way that word sounds anymore. It's more of a weighing, right? When you are weighed, your soul is weighed in the balance. Things have to be aligned in a certain type of way for you to continue your journey. Otherwise, like a video game, they restart you. You kind of got to go to another point. You got to go back a bit and start where you already were. And this can get frustrating. You can feel like you're banging your head off of a wall. Hello, I'm starting to wonder if you are just a bot because of no real conversation there. The same comments come through, but I'll treat you like you're a person, I suppose. Anyways, there is a difference between paganism and true Satanism. Pagans even know to pray. Pagans know that they're not the one, right? Pagans answer to a hierarchy and checks and balances, and they have a moral code. There is moral ethics to be found in paganism. And there's the ringing in my ears. However, the waters have become so muddied now that there are no clear boundaries. So I want to kind of just differentiate those. Satanism, true Satanism, not where you're worshiping the self, but where you are seeking the one that we call Satan, which is just a label. It's like saying liar, right? Satan just means liar, deceiver. Once you fall from grace, you are considered a deceiver until you are back in this state of grace. And this is, again, you're not earning your salvation. Salvation is a free gift, but you have to actively participate in accepting that gift. So there is a moral way we are supposed to be behaving and walking this out. And most people can agree on that. Satanism is when you actively seek out fallen entities. You know they're fallen. They are fallen ones. And maybe you don't know right away. You're just seeking that one, you feel like he understands you. He's a rebel. You're a rebel. He's a black sheep. You're a black sheep. You don't fit in. He didn't fit in. He was a lone wolf. You feel like a lone wolf. Stop right there. Again, there are exceptions to every rule, okay? Again, that's a very immature spiritual outlook to have, but a lot of teenagers have that outlook. A lot of young adults have that outlook. And so in an effort to bridge the gap and reach out to these people, we need to make make a clear distinction between what paganism means and what Satanism is. And even Dante's Inferno did this. So we're going to look at something, and I want to show you. Is there anyone here yet? I want to show you something briefly because we're going to get to the coffee thing. But this is another thing that I found right online, and I want to show you. You can read it. You can read what it says. This is a presentation, or this is presented by Gayland Wurst, a PhD, and Robert L. Marsh. This is from 1993. Someone working in, what do I want to say there? cooperation with the FBI and or CIA. And now we know that groups in these organizations are corrupt. Wherever you find man, you will find some type of corruption, at least for now. That's not a surprise. Now it's worse than it was. We know this as well. But there was a time when they wanted people to be aware. The problem with bringing awareness is you're going to hit people who already have a darkness inside them, a prevalence to darkness, right? I'm going to use a fork to eat. That type of person is going to use a fork to possibly do harm. Do you see what I mean? It's not so much the tools, it's how you use them. And sometimes awareness isn't always a good thing. However, they thought that there was so many similarities in the murders and missing persons cases that they were investigating that they were compelled to write this out for uptraining for FBI and CIA classes. I want to address the topic of satanic panic in a mature and educated fashion. But first, we have to go through coffee because, again, I want to show you how easy certain things are to fall into. Not because I'm promoting it, not because I want you to fall into it. I prayed heavily before I started this video. It's what I do. My head is covered. It is quite a lot these days. It's just what's happening to me. I'm not saying it has to happen to you. I'm not saying it is right for everyone. I'm saying I'm protected. If you don't feel protected, then certain parts of this video might not be for you. I don't know. I can't say that. All I can say is that we are in a time when these things are relevant. And if we're going to be looking at information and inundated daily with information, let us look at things that will edify us and educate us to what's going on around us so that we can better walk this out and we can better notice the signs or symptoms of problems that people around us might be having with some of these issues. People that really, really need to hear the good news. Death is not permanent. It is an illusion. It is the shadow of death for a reason. Okay? It is not permanent. It is not forever. It is not eternal. Now, I can't really explain to you in what way it's an illusion yet. Because when a concept is new to you and it's just like kind of come out the ether at you and you're just seeing the breadcrumbs of it and, you know, the little evidences of it, it's very hard to explain to other people, right? Nobody has explained it yet, and I don't know quite how to explain it properly. But I'm trying to encourage you when I say we're going to look at a few things, but keep in mind, you do not have to consent to certain things happening to you by certain individuals, maybe not people, just individuals around you. And this is why we're going to do situational awareness video very soon on consent. And that's going to be put out to all 3 channels because it's important that you understand when your consent is being manipulated or somebody or an entity is gaining passive consent from you, like Netflix or Hulu or any of these other sites that you know, we all stream service through. So let's get started. Thanks for the thumbs up, guys, and thanks for being here. So a top contributor to the channel sent me some links, and this one I kept. A couple of them I lost because, again, these are rabbit holes. But she pointed me in the right direction, she. So I wanted to say thank you so much for your help. And thank you for trusting me with this information. And I hope that I present it appropriately. So this is a site called Sacred Footsteps. And it's called How Satan's Drink Spread to Europe Through the Ottomans. Now this is meant to be funny. It's meant to be humorous. It's meant to be tongue-in-cheek. However, back in the day, they actually called it that. They called coffee Satan's drink, but why did they call it that? Do we know? And I'm really brought to thinking about, and again, I try to relate these to you, not in parables like Christ did. I'm not that good with words, but through pop culture. And I think of, what movie was it where the coffee was like a black sludge? I'm kind of like starting to, and this might not be good, I don't know, but I'm starting to relate darker colored food items with black goo. And I don't know if I should be doing that, but I am. Like, I just kind of can't help it. And so I know that these, I know that some of these topics need to be covered. And so we're going to look at why it was called Satan's drink. And I have to laugh because it's just, back then, we're not called to be superstitious. Everything was superstitious back then. But let's think about what we're told. What is food? Any seed bearing, and it's all called fruit. They weren't called vegetables, it was all fruit, right? And it has to be bearing a seed. And on that note, I have a short video to do on cannabis. So if you're a young person and you're still partaking, you might want to watch this video, especially if, in any regards, if you're against GMOs and things like that, you might want to watch the video that I'm going to do about that. So anyways, it was the smell that got me hooked. Now, we're not going to read this person's, I love good writing more than most people today. And well, you know what? Let me just read it because, yeah. It was the smell that got me hooked. The smell of the weekends, with both parents around, the smell of laughter and conversation. But though both simultaneously soothing and exciting to the senses, it was never a necessity. It was the shared experience, the communal aspect that kept me within its grasp. This reminds me of the Folgers coffee commercials that are always shown at Christmas, like this time of year. I don't know if they're still showing it, but it was so old and hokey. But the best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup. Yeah, and the brother's home from college, and I could always just picture like that being my favorite uncle because we were close enough in age. He was more like a brother for a time in my life, and I thought I was gonna marry him. Like I just adored this guy, and they're showing this commercial right now. Let's remember, almost all things that this secular world is going, we'll say secular system, pushes on us, anything that trends, usually inevitably ends up being not good for us and ends up being bad for us in the end. Consumerism is pushing materialism, which pushes lust for material objects. It pushes gluttony for like shopaholics. That's a form of gluttony, okay? Lust doesn't mean just for another body. It is a false love or obsession with something else. It doesn't have to be a person. You can lust after alcohol, right? And then you can over imbibe, and then that gets into the gluttony category. So you see how each one of these 7 deadly sins is a slippery slope leading to the next. Pride, thinking that you are the final authority. Even in this secular world, thinking that you only have to answer to you is not always a good way to be. Certain rules are in place for a reason, and they are meant to protect people who don't break them, because inevitably there are people that do. But think about how much coffee is pushed in this world. Just as I appreciate its associations with company, the origins of drinking coffee show that it was something that was done outside the home. While coffee shops are a central element of European culture, very big in the Muslim culture, very big. While coffee shops are a central element of European culture, Viennese Kaffeehäuser have been deemed an intangible cultural heritage element by UNESCO. Europeans, including Italians and Greeks, owe their rich coffee customs to sharing the Mediterranean with the Arab and African worlds. More Silk Road business and the trade. We're told that trade is a good thing, and I think that it is. But again, there's a dark side of trade, and it is black market trading, because there are things that are not good for people. And it used to be a societal thing. Everyone as a society used to agree that like you couldn't drink until you hit a certain age, right? Look at what has happened to our society, and please keep telling us that those old ways are negative and patriarchal in nature. Now, I'm not talking about the home life, because that was patriarchal, okay? I'm not talking about that element. But in the world, out of the home sense, all right? Coffee was once considered exotic, even feared an Eastern thing in that Orientalist way of thinking, and an official approval from Pope Clement VIII was even necessary in 1600 to clear coffee's dangerous connotations. It is claimed that his advisors pressured him to denounce the drink, referring to it as a bitter invention of Satan. Now that's interesting, isn't it? This is why we were looking at the harvesting of it, because that's important too. We need to be wise consumers. If we educate ourselves with truth, not just knowledge, but truth, honest knowledge, truthful knowledge, if we educate ourselves, we can walk this out better, making better decisions for ourselves, our families, and thus our communities. Certain things used to be agreed upon as a society, and our society was in better shape collectively. But nothing lasts forever. And long term, none of this was sustainable because we got rid of our own sustainability. Human beings turned into resources in the workforce instead of resources in their own lives. We can no longer feed ourselves. That remains the main problem today, is that we are not feeding ourselves, and most people can't and don't know how to do this. So I'm not condemning you. I didn't grow up on a farm. I'm a city girl. Like I had no idea, like a riding mower, like to me that was a tractor, like to pull things and stuff. Like I didn't know it cut the grass too. And then when I first tried to use one, I didn't know how to put the deck down. So I went around the whole yard, an acre, and I didn't put the deck down. So yeah, please, like I am not the one to, I don't judge. People always think I'm that way. Like I think I'm better than them. Honestly, if you think I think that, I think that's a reflection of yourself, not feeling like somewhere you don't feel you measure up, which is huge too in our society. Trust me, I know. I have really low self-esteem, but I don't know that we should be pushing high self-esteem to the point where we think that we are our own authorities. And this is why looking back and seeing how these things were decided and how they happened, I think is imperative. So it is claimed that his advisors pressured him to denounce the drink, referring to it as a bitter invention of Satan. Upon tasting it himself, he is reported to have remarked, now again, we don't know if this is truthful or not, "This devil's drink is so delicious. We should cheat the devil by baptizing it." Let me be honest too, like coffee itself alone, black coffee, I don't like it. Like it's very, very bitter. I only like really strong, like good coffee. Like I don't even know how to describe, like a good Italian roast or a French roast, like real dark and deep. And those are the only kinds that I used to drink it black when I did drink it at all. My favorite morning bevy is orange juice. I mean, if you ever want to make an offering to me, let it be OJ. No, I'm playing. Don't make an offering to me. Make it to God. I'm just kidding. But that's my drink of the morning. So the obsession with coffee isn't something I entirely relate to, but everybody around me drinks a ton of it, like in the whole all the families, right? And so I've always been that one that's just kind of like, nah, no thanks, you know. And so some of this is totally new to me. So in 1889, Emperor Menelik II of Ethiopia. Now, Ethiopia, I wanted to touch on this because this raises a red flag for me. Who's here? We have the Book of Enoch, which we are told is still used and utilized in Ethiopia, right? Follow me for a second because this gets weird. Okay, so in Ethiopia, they allegedly have the oldest form of the Christian faith. If that is true, and America is a newer nation, where the heck do our pastors go to preach? Think about it. Like they say, oh, well, the gospel has to be heard in the whole world. We have to go here, there, and let me be clear too. If babies are continuously being born, that's probably not going to happen. So either we need to revise our interpretation of that, or maybe babies stop being born. Maybe in the beginning we were told to go forth and multiply because that's what we were supposed to do then. I don't necessarily believe that's what we're supposed to be doing right now. And people will say, oh, that's Satanistic. Listen to me for a minute. Follow me. If it is like the days of Noah, and some of us believe that that means genetic GMOs being added to food and the water supply, which means in our own vessels, how good do you think it is to create another being then, if you don't know who you're creating with, if we're not all the same, and we've been tampered with? I'm going to do a whole video on that. I'd like to really have a conversation about that. You guys, please feel free to always utilize the comment section. I don't have any restrictions. I always turn them all off after I post the video. So generate conversations, share links. I'm good with that. Let's just try to keep it relevant to whatever the topic is of that, the video above. But please, I'm not like that person. I'm not going to tell you, don't comment. There are certain things, though, in certain times, if I'm reading, it's very hard to read as we go. But hopefully a laptop soon, I hope. Emperor Menelik II of Ethiopia, where the seeds of coffee, which are dried, roasted, and ground to make coffee, originate from, described it as an Ethiopian drink. And also, if they have the original form of Christianity, wouldn't America then, if we are the newest nation, wouldn't we be the last people who would hear the gospel? Wouldn't we be the last people it would reach? Think about that for a minute, guys. If we are newer than all the other nations, as they've told us, and much of it's been decimated, we've seen pictures from like the 1800s with things being, tore down, demolished, all this kind of thing. So we don't really know. We're trying to put it together. But if America is a new nation, wouldn't we be the last people to have heard the gospel? And wouldn't we truly be in the end of this age? Just something to think about. So from Ethiopia, coffee beans quickly spread with the help of Yemeni traders to Mecca, Medina, Cairo, Damascus, Baghdad, and finally Istanbul after the fall of Constantinople, which I find interesting too. He didn't want coffee in his region, in his nation. Why? Two travelers from Aleppo and Damascus reportedly opened the first coffee house in Istanbul. It became so popular that it spread across to the East Indies, Indonesia, and to the Americas. In its early stages, even in the Muslim world, coffee was considered intoxicating, thus also banned by imams at a theological court in Mecca in 1511. Their primary concern, so even the holy men, the alleged holy men of the Muslim nation, did not approve of coffee in the beginning. But that changes really quickly. Their primary concern, however, and this is key, pay attention here, guys, because this is how Christ was. He was a threat to the Roman Empire. And I heard Ben Shapiro talking about this a bit. And honestly, I think I could hold my own in a debate with him, just because I think he allows stumbling blocks in his mind to get in the way of facts, of certain things that have been proven. And there were witnesses to the crucifixion. There's all these people that say, oh, you don't have any witnesses. There were over 500 witnesses to the resurrection of Christ. People who saw him teaching and walking around. You can't do that without a body. You can't do that if you're permanently deceased either. I apologize. The young one, the little girl, she's actually in heat. We were told she was 5 months old. I knew that wasn't the case. I knew it was going to cause a problem. I said it in these videos on this channel. And so now I have to separate them, and she is yipping because she is very sensitive and she doesn't like a lot of individuals. Thank goodness I'm one of the beings that she likes, but she does not care for Samson at the moment. They were playing and getting along, but right now is not the time, so I apologize for the background noise. Their primary concern, however, was the political sentiments exchanged in coffee houses. See, this is what they're really worried about. The threat to their government. The threat of these discussions challenging the current rule. See, this is the problem you have with melting pots. When people of other ilks, people you're not yoked with, people not in your family, not of your tribe, not of your community, when you start talking with other people and you can either confirm or not confirm, like for example, news stories like the train wreck in Ohio, when you can't confirm things with these people who live next to you, then you look to the ones who are telling you and spreading this information, which would be the government, right? And you also get stronger because then you have a common enemy. They want all of us to have a common enemy. They want us to think the government is on our side. So they are giving you all these quote unquote reliable witnesses to UFO events. They're giving you military. They're giving you policemen. They're giving you EMTs. What's funny is I think a lot of those people, the ones that were corrupt, because they're not all corrupt, I believe they're involved in what's happening. And I told you what happened to me. And I believe because of what I know about healthcare and because of the procedures I've had done on myself, this is part of my testimony. It reminded me a lot of a medical situation, and it reminded me a lot of being under the influence of anesthetic. And so I think we need to be mindful of there's a lot of spokes to this wheel. It's never just one thing, right? So they're going to call it Satan's drink, maybe to scare people. The Pope knows that if he tells his followers that it's Satan's drink, that they'll steer clear of it, because everybody listens to Big Daddy Pope in the Catholic Church. And I'm not mocking him per se, but there are things to be answered for. You know what I think about the current one, though. I don't think we have one right now. I don't think he's there, and it's not because I'm in error. It's because I don't think that one is around anymore. They only do certain things when a pope is deceased, and they have been doing those things right in our faces, pretty much telling us, hey, he's deceased. They're doing everything but telling us. That's what we got to pay attention to right now. Oh, that little girl. So their primary concern was that they would threaten the current rule, okay? Only 13 years later, the Ottoman Turkish Sultan, the Magnificent, oh my gosh, if you demand yourself to be called the Magnificent, there's something wrong. You might be a narcissist if you refer to yourself as magnificent. Ordered the ban be overruled because the hot beverage was just so popular. According to a local proverb, Turkish coffee should be black as Hades, strong as death, and sweet as love. That's a good advertising slogan. Coffee houses became a place for news, politics, and intellectual thought, expressed over hot coffee and table games such as backgammon, checkers, and chess. Walking through little towns in former Ottoman districts, you will notice an array of coffee shops, but there's usually one main one in the center of the town. And that's where they started building them when they started popping up in these Turkish nations. And Muslim nations was in the center of town. So people would gather there, right? And they started serving the beverage even at churches. So this gets into a lot of the trade and what was going on there. I'm going to pause this a second to make sure she's not actually like on fire or something. So just give me 1 second. Hold please. Sorry about that, guys. She really doesn't like my son. And so, like I said, she doesn't like many people though, but she will like go off like that on him if he just even comes out of his room to use the bathroom. So that's probably what happened. So this gets into a lot of the trade, okay, and how it spread. And that's what I'm talking about with the gospel. If it actually started in Ethiopia, if we actually have the book of Enoch, if that's true, if it's canon, and America is a new nation, wouldn't America be the last place to hear the gospel? And if that's true, where the heck are our pastors always going? Ask yourself these questions, because I believe some of them are involved in what's going on in America today, and a really big topic. I think some are involved in trafficking. because who better? You have a constant visa. You're constantly doing mission work. And no, not all of those people are actually called to those positions. They're not all godly. And, well, I'll get into that in another video, but yeah. You got to start putting these things together. All of this goes together. And if you look at how trade works, like how things spread around the world, that can teach us a lot. But again, our news is also funneled. We have to be careful not to believe everything that we receive just because it's there. Okay, so that is a little bit on the trade. I will post a link. Please remind me if I don't do that and you really want them, because I don't always remember to do that. I need to like get back to life and take my dogs outside and like, you know, I'm not an actress. I don't have a talent agent, but I'd be willing to have one. You know, I'm kind of humorous and useful to have around. I mean, I'll laugh at myself if I can get paid for it. That's it. That's actually an inside joke because of the laughing stock that I am. Now, this is interesting. It's kind of cute. And again, I gave you my opinion of the difference between paganism and Satanism. They're not the same things. And paganisms actually have a moral code that they follow. They don't just, you know, there are differences. And so this is called a welcoming community. This is on Tumblr. I don't use the app. I don't know what it is. But it says, hello, we're the Lokian Welcoming Committee, here to welcome new Lokians, because come on, we were all confused at the start of this trickster stuff. So welcome. If you have any questions, just ask. So, Lokian Welcoming Committee, this is actually like a group that is a group of pagans. Now, Loki is a Norse mythology god. We're going to get into Norse and Greek mythology, and people are going to be like, oh no, she's lost it. She's not. She's fallen away. Look, just because I read a lot and I introduce you guys to some culture, and that is that there's a difference between culture and religion and faith. These are three different things. Oftentimes your culture and upbringing will dictate your religion, and sometimes if you're blessed, faith can stem from that religion, but not always. So again, let's make these distinctions, because there are too many people, especially on YouTube, pretending like they're journalists or news people, like they're underground journalists and they have some truth to offer to you, when again, they don't have it. They don't do the proper footwork. They don't know what they're talking about. And there's a lot to be learned from Greek mythology. There are a lot of moral lessons there. So it's not as if these fallen little g gods, and there's, you know, people talk about pantheons. Well, oh, that's more than one god. That's paganism. Little g gods are the fallen ones, the fallen angels or angelics, the ones that God created before us, right? Little g gods, because they are, for all intents and purposes, above us in the hierarchy. And but when I say above us, again, that's a higher frequency. That doesn't necessarily dictate better. But when they fell, right, then they become these fallen idols, or whatever you want to call them. Greek mythology is just Greek history. Mythology means history. Norse mythology is Norse history. It is the Viking history. People from Iceland, the Icelandic history, okay? So let's make these distinctions and be mature in our research and in our handling of it. I hope that comes across properly. So this person asks, what kinds of food does Loki like? I heard he likes spicy things, but I'm not sure if it's just a UPG. I wasn't hip to all this lingo. The person who sent me this information said that a UPG is like common knowledge, but it was gained through personal revelation. So it can't be confirmed that this is factual, which a lot of it can't be confirmed as fact, but, you know, again, we get a pretty good idea of things. So this one says, unfortunately, none of Loki's culinary preferences are attested. Now, they're having a whole conversation about this, all right? The Eddas don't really give any insight into that, and there's no surviving record of anyone offering to him historically. A later figure, Loki, the ash lad, was a household spirit who received offerings of porridge and flour in the hearth. but it's really questionable whether medieval Loki is actually connected to Loki. Okay? Loki, is it pronounced the same? The little g god, or whether the practices surrounding the former would necessarily be a good indication of the practices surrounding the latter, even if the connection was there. Wow, that's a mouthful. So yeah, they're having a whole conversation on the preferences and the likes and dislikes of Loki as if like they're going to date him, right? Now, do we make offerings to God? Sure we do. But we offer like things that, for example, during Lent, people give up things, right? And I'm not going to say I've given up chocolate now because of these links that we've read about coffee, cocoa bean. They come from the same places. And so that's hard for me. I like chocolate. I was allergic to it as a young girl, and now I've gone back to it's weird how we kind of go back to the things of our youth, but I'm not eating that any longer. So it's hard for me to talk about sometimes still. But do we make offerings? Well, yeah, we give up a thing that we really love. We don't actually set it down as if this statue, for example, this bust that I have of Mary, this small Italian bust that I have, I don't actually sit things in front of her. Well, I mean, I don't sit food in front of her to offer to her and ask her to eat it, or even pretend that she might eat it, or just, pretend that it's there for her to, whatever. I don't, it's not under, again, people take this word sacrifice so literal, and those are the people that you can tell don't understand a parable. And that's sad because we are told in scripture what that means. If you don't know what that means, I will tell you. But again, be ready for the information. If you don't actually want to know, don't ask. The comments are on, so again, please feel free. So these are the things that are popular to offer Loki. Spicy stuff, sweet stuff, disgustingly sweet stuff. Coffee, cinnamon, which cinnamon and coffee, or cinnamon and chocolate, I love cinnamon like nobody's business. Like, I don't know, like, I just love it. So that's a strange one for me. And novel or unusual combinations of flavors. Now, those drinks that the kids make, I can't even say the word on here now, where you mix all the pops together, that drink, where you go to like the fountain thing and you mix them all together and say, this is what I made up today, Mom. And my son always made those, and I had to taste them, and they were horrid. But anyways, and I would do it because I'm Mom, and that's what I do because I rock like that. Or I used to. Alternatively, if you prefer to stick with the tested stuff, you could go with things that we know were offered to other Norse gods, including alcohol, especially ale and mead. I would really like to know what mead is. Like, how do you make mead? Because their beer, like beer is not the same as ale. And they drank it all the time, even in the Bible or biblical times. So I think it was like the drink. So what was it? And nobody was drinking water. If water, we're told water is life. And these people, like, no, none of them ever drink water. It's just weird to me. Okay, so alcohol, meat, blood, bread, grain and grain-based foods, milk, butter. But you're under no obligation to stick with any of this stuff. If all else fails, try something. So these are like regular topics all over Reddit, all over. Can I show you? I don't know if I kept it open. Oh, did it get rid of it? I hate when that happens. Yeah, I just looked it up like 10 minutes ago, so don't tell me that. Reddit is like not my friend right now. I'm not happy with the site or the people on it. Coffee and paganism. Every time I do this, it closes it. Coffee is an offering. I just looked it up. You're kidding, right? Well, you are a stinker. Okay, so it's in there. But anyways, these kind of topics are all over. Then you have the magical kitchen, magical aspects of coffee, witchcraft, and the pagan lifestyle. Okay. What deity is associated with coffee? Not sure who this is. Not at all. I don't even know who this tribe is. I don't know where they're at. Let's look at that real quick. Because again, we looked at the Olex the other day, right? Allegedly the originals. What do you mean no data found? You just asked me if... Whatever. Oh, that's why. Hey. See? This is why I don't like phones and technology. Okay. No, go away. Go away. Go away. This is a detail from The Guardian by Edward Claywright. Okay. Oh, Waka, the sky god of Ethiopia. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that rendition there looks a lot like St. Michael. Waka, the supreme sky god of the Oromo tribesmen, has the leading claim for being crowned the god of coffee. The Oromo are one of the native populations of Ethiopia and lay claim to the earliest use of coffee. This is interesting. So it's also allegedly the home of one of the oldest branches of Christianity. Is this true? And they didn't know this until recently, I guess. Well, not recently, but in my day. Although they did not drink coffee, they would wait until the Sufi monks of the 15th century. Now, that is what I wanted to look at. Waka is the one God, creator of all. Okay, he is benevolent and omniscient, much like the Judeo-Christian God. Since he created everything, of course, he created coffee. But it doesn't seem altogether right to specify him as the god of coffee. Okay. Caffeina, pretend Roman god of energy. Caffeina can be found in various guises on the internet. Oh, see, those are made up like fan legends. Or see what I mean about the internet? You got to be very careful. There was another thing about coffee being... Hold on. I need to get that to remind me again. Hold, please. Oh, the Sufi monks. Hold on. Coffee and spirituality. Because this is one that we didn't touch on, and I want you guys to see this real quick. Now, do you see how many questions about this? And especially the last couple of years, like inundated, right? Remember, anything that the world pushes. Cocaine or caffeine is a stimulant like sugar and cocaine, so reliance on it harms the sacral chakra. Okay? And the chakra, I totally believe, are another level at interpreting the story of the virgins in the Bible. And their oil is all about them fasting or not fasting and their spirituality. So it's not as simple as they make it. Our addiction to caffeine is a spiritual issue. But anyway, let's look at this one because it's spiritus. Coffee. It's all about that. The spiritual connection between coffee and meditation. The spiritual connection between coffee and meditation. The history of coffee's connection to spirituality. Now, the Sufi monks, I guess, were really big into it, and they were a really big part in promoting the consumption and trading of it. So I wanted to touch on that because I thought that was very telling. They partake of a strong brew, much like we read about the Olex, okay? Now, why did I show you this in the same video? Because you need to understand where our daily habits and routines come from so that they are not used against you. That is one of the ways that a hole can be put in your spiritual armor, and I speak from experience, okay? If a hole is put in your spiritual armor through you sinning against your own nature or the nature of someone else, okay, and by this, in big part, is what we put into our bodies, all right? If there is some spiritual reason that we should not be consuming caffeine and cocoa and the cocoa bean, it can take us to a point where there's a hole in our armor and we will not be aware of the things that are happening around us. Oh, how much time are we at? 50. We need to go over this, and we're going to go over this in an adult and sensitive way. However, are you interested? Do you want to see this? I think I'm going to put it in the next live video. I like doing that because things are organized that way. But you might have missed the other day when I did that because I stopped one live and I went right into the next one, okay? It is just for continuity on the channel. I'm trying to be more organized, and I hope that this month I'll be able to get a laptop and put these presentations in a nicer, more pleasing order for you. I did go to online school, so I do know how to use PowerPoint and all that stuff, and I enjoy it. So I hope to put together more visually aesthetic pieces as well. But I looked into this already, and I was looking into the people, and I found it very telling that the main contributor was Dale Griffiths, a PhD from Ohio. He is deceased as of 2020. I find it also very telling the people that we are losing, like Russ Dizdar. He was allegedly a big spiritual warfare he had a ministry in spiritual warfare and was a big help to a lot of people, and allegedly, and he is no longer with us. A lot of people who were, at least in the secular way, who were popular or whatever of the church of faith, did pass during the CV era. I think it is a time of a harvest of a kind. I think it is a culling. God is allowing it to happen, but that doesn't mean we should be complacent and sit on our hands. Perhaps God is allowing it because we are allowing it. But again, the first thing to remember is that death is not permanent. It is an illusion. So anything we go over here should not put you in a state of fear, but a state of empowerment, so that the next time tricksters trying to use certain techniques right out in the open around you, you know what's going on. They thought, these people back then, good people in the FBI, maybe not good people, but people who weren't corrupted, who wanted to make a difference and wanted to help, thought they saw so many similarities in the missing person cases and the abductions and the deaths in especially children, that they had to get together and collaborate about it and start training FBI personnel, CIA personnel, law enforcement personnel into the warning signs of what to look for around I'm trying to be sensitive here. What to look for in forensic situations and scientific forensics of crime scenes of that nature, okay? They wanted them to be hip to what was going on in our nation. Now, this was written in 93, it looks like. So, I am going to take my dogs out. I'm going to get that little one calmed down, figure out what she's mad at this time. This will not be a regular thing because I'll get the noise-canceling headphones and all that. It's just a thing that she does, and I do take good care of her. She can be sweet, but she's not my dog. Like, I didn't bring her into this situation. Again, it was, I believe, an element that was added literally just to add more stress. And so I just have to be as calm and as, I think us people who are willing to repent in the nation need to be as shiny as possible, because we are getting down to the wire here. And not a lot is happening. I don't see a lot of change happening myself, but I don't get out a lot. But we need to really be making some collective changes. But again, I want to have another video that's going to be about this. But we're also going to have another video about eyes, which is going to be super fun, I think. It's relevant, but it'll be fun. And a couple short uploads coming. So as always, remain watchful. check out the channel, and please encourage communication in the comment section and leave links if you guys think there's something I missed or I need to cover. By all means, I'm more than willing to have help and have people offer up some material. I love you. Have a blessed